Bombshell Brunches, where your hosts Raquel Rodenberg and Christina Lau sip and spill with badass babes every Tuesday morning.
Tuesday!
That day again.
Oh, it happens every week.
Every freaking week.
Oh, such a dad joke. Okay, let's do our learning, loving, loading.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Learning, loving, loathing. So this week we talked to, well, I guess we talked to her a few weeks ago, but we talked to Sara about decluttering and letting shit go. And both Christy and I are in the midst of moves or massive decluttering after moves. So that is really the theme of the learning, loving, loathing. I am loving purging. I know like a lot of people have a hard time getting rid of stuff.
Feels good though.
I love it. I can't wait to throw stuff out. I know that sounds so bad. Or sell it. I'll sell stuff. I'm selling a camera.
And we do talk about that is how to repurpose.
Yeah, repurpose, sell, gain some income, lots of good stuff. But anyways, I'm loving getting rid of stuff, and I'm loathing the time that it takes because I don't have a lot of time. So
you know what? Yeah, I'm loathing that too.
Yeah, it's all you.
Oh, you did? Yeah. No, I mean, that's you stole my words. Rude.
I apologize.
I'm learning the same. I'm loving the same. I'm loathing the same. It's true. You and I have had a lot of conversations. It's been about a month. We've as things have started to ramp up, and I've really, really been enjoying the fact that we have moved our podcast in the same ways that our life is going, and hopefully you all will gain a lot from this, because I think that it's something that we all go through at various stages and different what's the word, like there's different weight on it, right? You're moving internationally. I'm kind of in a holding pattern right now. I'm in a different space for a little while. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It's really, really cleansing to reimagine your surroundings, whatever that looks like to you. Sarah's going to help us to figure that out, which is great. So enjoy. Oh, this is so exciting. I am going to launch straight into our introduction with a guest that I have been looking forward to speaking with for so long, and I know Raquel feels the same. Sara Brigz is a declutter coach and founder of Let That Shit Go. And for those of you who want to be polite, let that go. Where she helps people to get to the root cause of clutter, confront the emotions holding them back, and live a life that they're excited about. You can find Sara on and her free decluttering guide, which I have actually downloaded already, on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. We will link all of those socials for you. Her Instagram, which is what we use the most, is let that shit 2_ and then go. But we're gonna launch straight into this because I'm terrified of over talking and being cluttered with my words. Already, I bet with my thought, nothing can be cluttered today, or it can be, and then Sara will fix it. So hi, Sara.
Yeah, no, it's so nice to be here.
We're really excited to have you.
We are very excited. So I thought we could just jump in, and for any of our listeners who don't know who you are and don't know your backstory, I think you're pretty open with it, which is really cool. I know we've seen a lot of it in your newsletter and things like that, all talking about it, but not everyone listening has heard it. So do you want to give a bit of your backstory, where you grew up, how you got into decluttering in the first place, and then how you basically made it into a career?
Sure, yeah. So I used to be a very cluttered person. I'm a bit of a kind of sentimentalist at heart. I still am, even though I don't have as much stuff these days. But in a nutshell, I used to have like a walk-in closet so full that I couldn't walk into it. I had like hundreds and hundreds of books. I had just like so many thousands of things that I really struggled to get rid of. And I ended up moving all of those things from one city to another city and finally to Toronto, where I am now. And it was after I tried unpacking them all into this like teeny tiny apartment that I just had a full-blown meltdown. Like I just looked at all this stuff around me and I was like, I bought this all because I thought it would make me happy, and now I can't find a home for it. And it was just an absolute like full-blown panic attack. So that is what spurred on my whole decluttering, process. I ended up spending the next year or so really having a good hard look at the stuff in my life, why I bought it, and essentially questioning what it was that I was like, what need I was trying to fill by having these things. Because I realized then that it's not about the stuff. The stuff is sort of a symptom of all the cluttered shit in our minds. And then after a while, I started helping some friends declutter. They saw what a difference it made for me. They asked me for help. I didn't impose it on them. And then from there, it just sort of turned into the business that it is today. So these days, I'm helping people,
I feel like it doesn't just turn into the business it is today. I feel like there's a lot of work in between.
All of a sudden, tomorrow.
But we'll let that go.
Always come back to that.
Yeah, we will let that go for now. But I have a couple questions. What's when you say a tiny apartment, how many square feet was it?
So we are about, currently we're living in a 300 square foot apartment. It's about 28 square meters for anyone outside of Canada and the US. It's very small. Now, when I first moved to Toronto, I was living on my own. Now I'm living with my partner, and I was in a slightly bigger apartment on my own. And then we moved again into an even larger apartment, and then we finally settled on this place. So there have been a lot of moves, but we seem to keep getting more and more confined.
Okay, soon you're just going to be standing up in a toilet.
That's the next.
You're like, that's all I'm good. Like, everything's within reach.
Wow. That's an
300 square feet. And I'm from Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you should be all familiar with this.
Not that familiar. I mean, yeah, 300 square feet is really, that is Hong Kong sized apartments. That's incredible. Okay. I want to talk about your partner though. What did they do? Turn around and be like, oh, okay.
Well,
She's a declutter expert. Fine.
Yeah. When I started doing this was long before I was a declutter expert. I was actually a flight attendant in my previous career, and then a teacher before that. So I've been sort of all over the place in terms of career stuff. But yeah, he would come over and just stare at these like mountains of things that I had gone through and, decided to get rid of. And I think he was a little taken aback at first, but eventually it got to the point, like I was very careful to never push decluttering on him. I didn't want to suggest it, like this is a me thing. And that's how I feel about everything, like I'm also vegan. I feel the same way about not pushing that on anybody. It's a personal choice. But there was one day where he was looking at his really full closet and he kind of looked over at me and he's like, you want to help me declutter? And I was like, yes.
Oh,
that's so good of you. I'm the worst. I do the opposite. My boyfriend, when we moved in together, I was like, I'm very excited to move in with you. We're getting rid of almost everything you own.
You know what I've heard? That's a really common thing. You move in with another person and you're like, okay, we're decluttering your life. Because I've made great choices with all the things I have.
Well, it's so much easier to declutter somebody else's stuff, right?
Totally.
It's funny though, because by the time we actually moved in together, like we had both decluttered our stuff. There's no way we could have lived together if we both still had, like we both were collectors. We both had a lot of sentimental stuff. And it's funny because these days he'll actually call me out on some stuff and be like, you really haven't used that in the last like 6 months. And
oh, Sarah, I can't wait. We've got to get to my clothes because I can't. I have so many that I need to get rid of. Okay. I know I've just got to do the course. Okay, so that's great. Let's hone in on the anxiety side of it, because I know that a panic attack, for anyone who's had panic attacks, and I have to attest to them as well, in my previous life too, they're awful. It is so hard to come out from underneath being so overwhelmed by everything. So I'd really like for our audience to kind of, especially at the time during a pandemic, there is a lot more anxiety. Our emotions are much higher, and we turn to things generally to kind of feel safe, and external things, right? So let's talk about the anxiety. I'm moving into this place. Honestly, if you looked outside, you'd probably be like, with love, what are you doing? Let's talk about that and the stress of what clutter causes you emotionally. And we'll go scientific later, but emotionally, like how you
Yeah,
felt.
I think it becomes sort of a cycle, where we consume things and we buy more than we need in an attempt
Just
to.
1 second. Snoopy, enough. My dog is here. Give me 2 seconds and we'll redo that question.
Gives me more time to plan anyway.
Raquel has 5 dogs.
5 dogs?
She has 5 dogs. 5 dogs? Yes.
I won't make her declutter any of them.
Sorry?
I promise I won't make her declutter any of them.
Note, how to declutter humans, version 2.0 of Declutter Your Life. Although that is actually a pretty interesting point. Do you declutter your people?
How do you mean?
Well,
Oh, like friends and social media and stuff?
I haven't used this friend in 6 months. Goodbye.
I think it's always a little more complicated than that. But, decluttering and boundaries go hand in hand, and being able to set better boundaries about your stuff ends up leading to better boundaries around people too. So
that is I like that. We'll go into that too. Raquel, Sarah just said she wouldn't make you declutter your 5 dogs.
Four.
Oh, 4. I was
Four.
like, I'm sure there was 5.
Sounds like there's 5. My roommate's coming and going right now, so he's on alert.
I see.
Intruder.
Oh.
But that's okay. We will cut that out.
So let's head back into that second question then, that really hones in on the anxiety piece. I know I'm moving home. I'm going into a new space, and if you looked outside, you'd freak out, or I'd freak out, and you'd probably be fine. And you'd tell me what to do, which is great, which is why you're here. So everything is awesome. But let's talk about the anxiety, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have a lot of friends, family, our loved ones are probably trying to hold things close to them right now, trying to find some sense of control and some sense of safety. So can you just kind of have a bit of a chat about that anxiety piece, how it affected you, and then moving? I really like the specificity of moving into a smaller space, and how you went about decluttering that, and how the anxiety abated, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, clutter is so interesting from an anxiety standpoint because it becomes sort of like this cycle where we buy things or we keep things to try to gain a sense of control over our lives, but then our clutter kind of ends up controlling us, and it can cause us anxiety in the end. So it's sort of like we're trying to fix the problem, but that ends up becoming a new problem. And one of the things that the pandemic has really been showing me is a very recent example of people keeping things just in case. Like when I think of just in case clutter, I think of my grandparents who survived the Great Depression. They survived World War II, and they had a really hard time getting rid of anything. And, in case they needed it one day, in case they're ever in that position again. And I feel like we're kind of experiencing that to some extent right now.
Toilet paper.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
What a shit show.
Literally.
Yeah. And I think that, especially with people losing their jobs, like I absolutely understand wanting to keep things just in case. And I would never tell somebody to get rid of all of their just in case things. Just in case things, keep them from living the kind of life that they want, or it keeps them from opportunities, right? If they have to move across the country now because of COVID for a new job, but it seems daunting because they have all these just in case things, like it's working against them.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I recently bought, and Raquel and I currently are in Vancouver, BC. We're on a fault line. So I have an earthquake kit. So I have a 72-hour earthquake kit. When it really, really comes down to it, and I like that you mentioned the war piece, because we're in an invisible war against a virus, I guess, is the best way to kind of think about it. But when my dad's parents were in the war and rationing and all of that, they kept everything just in case. And as I was moving, I was like, this is my just in case cupboard. And I have one cupboard of just tinned goods. And it's not a big cupboard anymore, but I did have to really look at it and go, if everything really did, if shit literally hit the fan, one, I'd have enough toilet paper because I'm not crazy. But if it did, I'm not going to survive that long anyway. Like, I'm not going to survive. There will be so many other things that go wrong that my tinned goods are not going to help me past a certain point.
Past a certain point, yeah. I think, like, to some extent, it makes sense to have, a small stockpile of food.
Yeah.
Because things happen, right? Shit happens and you never really know. So I think it's okay to have maybe like an extra couple of weeks of food, of canned, whatever. But if somebody has so many that it could last them a year and then it gets in the way of them cooking, or, it becomes too much. And it causes the same anxiety that I think they're trying to avoid.
Right.
Yeah.
I think moving is a really good reset. And it's a good reminder of what you have. Like, I don't know. I was actually, funny enough that you're talking about like canned goods. I was thinking this morning when we were preparing for the podcast about how I move a lot. I move probably once every couple years. That's like the longest I really stay anywhere. And every time I throw out just tons of stuff, like every time I'm purging, somehow I still have more, but I do purge a lot. But there was like this one can of beans that I bought once. I thought they were kidney beans. They ended up being fava beans. I don't know if you've ever seen a fava bean, but they're massive. It's like a canned mushroom. They're just huge. And I was like, I don't know how people eat these, and they're hard, and like I don't like them. I didn't want them. I never got rid of them. I didn't give them away. I didn't donate them. They sat in my cupboard, and they probably moved with me like 3 times.
Amazing.
And they just kept coming with me. I was like, and every time I moved, I would unpack, and I was like, ugh, who would eat these? And put it back in my cupboard.
Then there's your safety.
Like it's that respect of food. Like, I was raised, to respect food and eat everything that's on your plate, which comes with a whole nother realm of issues. But it's that scarcity problem, and then you hold on to it. And I think eventually I like gave it to my mom or something. It's probably still in her cupboard. But it's true. And then and it really was. It was like finally I moved, and I was like, okay, 3 moves is it. If it's come 3 moves and I haven't touched it, it's gone.
I mean, and that's a very generous amount of moves too. Not everyone is going to end up moving 3 times in 5 years or whatever. Yeah, I think moving is such an interesting experience because no matter how much I declutter, I'm still always surprised at how much crap I have to move.
Yeah.
Although I will say, moving to this apartment, we were moving within the city, so it wasn't as bad. But from start to finish, my partner and his friend did most of the heavy lifting and got it done in a few hours. And it was just like all the furniture, everything, just whoop, right in here. And easiest move I've ever had. And if that's not enough reason to, live this lifestyle, I don't know what is.
Preach.
Tell me, paint us a picture of your apartment. What are the things that you love that you've got in there? What are the things that you've gotten rid of and not felt sorry about?
It's always funny because I actually wrote a blog post a while back about all the kitchen stuff I got rid of that I don't miss. And it's so hard for me to remember because I don't miss them and I never think of them. We always think it's going to be so difficult to get rid of something, or like we're going to miss it forever, but we really don't. So
Yeah.
These days, I mean, I've got a dining table and a few chairs. I don't have that much in the way of furniture. I have a little love seat, a rug.
Love seat
I
is a two-seater couch, right?
oh yes, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Other people are going to be like, you what? You have what? It's just for love. There's a hate seat somewhere else.
You're angry. You sit over there.
Just sit on the floor if you're hatred. You're full of hatred.
So I also have like a little shelving unit that we want to turn into a little indoor garden, some plants, that sort of thing. And we have a Murphy bed, so it folds right up into the wall. It's pretty handy for when you're in a literally like a little studio apartment. You only have one room, and it's the bedroom, the living room, the dining room. You know.
Do you work from home?
I do. Yeah.
Wow.
Does your partner work from home?
He was actually in training. It's now been ceased because of COVID.
Okay.
So between
So
jobs.
So you are both there.
Yes, he's not here currently, but yes, yeah, we're both here.
And it's a pandemic.
Yep.
And so you're not meant to go out and do lots of things.
Correct.
How's that?
You know, like because we've gradually downsized the living space that we have, like it's been going pretty well considering. Like we're very good communicators because we have to be in this space.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, if we're both in the kitchen doing anything, we have to constantly be, oh, I'm just going to sneak right in there. Oh, I'm just going to reach around you there and grab this thing. Because our kitchen is like the size of a postage stamp. It's teeny tiny, but we cook, we love cooking, and we're both in there all the time. It just takes all these little bits of communication that you never really think about. And the other thing that I really love about this place is like we never have to, you know, in bigger houses, people are always like, dinner, you know, they're like calling across the house. Like we never have to do that. And I love
The
that.
gong. 10 minutes later, people are like, yes.
There's so many like little perks to tiny living, and like we're never more than 10 steps away from anything. Like I've counted. It's literally from one corner of the apartment to the other. It will take me 10 steps. So, you know, I have no excuse not to put things away.
That's really, you know what? It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating because I'm getting anxiety feelings just from thinking that I have someone that close all the time. But I guess that's the other thing is it really says a lot. It's a testament to how calm your energy must be as well, right? If you have fewer things, and going back to that anxiety, when you know you have what you need, I think that's a really wonderful way of then taking on your relationships and taking on your spaces and internally and externally. I feel like it's probably reflective. Like you're a much calmer person than Raquel or I'm going to speak for the both of us. Right now we're like total maniacs. But that's the aspiration. And I think that's really great for our kind of bombshell babes to be like, oh, I would like to become like Sarah and not manic like Christine and Raquel. How do I do that? So, you know, and Raquel, I'm talking so much. You can ask the next question.
Honestly, I'm just enjoying the ride. So speaking of partners and communication and anxiety, one thing that I find really interesting for me, and I'm assuming it's probably very similar for you. I don't know, Christina, if it's like this for you, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess it is. When my house gets messy, okay, so I have a cycle. I'm very orderly. I like things to be where they're supposed to be. I like empty tables. I don't like clutter at all. It just drives me bonkers. And I'm happy to throw things away. My boyfriend likes to leave things everywhere. If there's a surface, there is stuff on it. That's fine. He's gotten much, much better. But I find as soon as I'm really stressed, the cleaning and the decluttering starts to slow down and wane. And the peak of my anxiety is when I've lived in it for about 2 or 3 days where there's clutter on every surface and I just go ballistic. Like I am not a good person to be around when it's a cluttered house. And I start it's almost like my brain just can't even comprehend anything, even the steps to take to fix it. Like I'll sit there and I'll be like, I can't think because this place is disgusting. So, I mean, I think you probably have lots of people who are in that same position. is this like a scientifically backed thing? Is this why everyone's so crazy about, the minimalist life right now? Or like, what is that? Am I just a freak show?
I
Well,
don't.
yes, but
I
that's
mean,
a different conversation.
I think, like, as far as the science behind it goes, like, there are so many different things at play. And it's different for different people. Some people struggle more with the sentimental stuff. Some people struggle more with the putting things away and the organizational stuff. One of the things that I am really fascinated by is like introversion versus extroversion and how that relates to high sensitivity. And I identify as somebody who's highly sensitive, to other people's emotions, to really bright lights. Like I get drained very easily. And I notice that when everything is kind of all over the place, it's like in the back of my brain, it's registering everything. And it's very difficult to focus on something if your brain is like noticing, oh, that's not where it's supposed to be. And I think a lot of that happens at the subconscious level, but it's still there and it's still, valid. And getting overwhelmed at that, I think, is a very normal thing. Um, there's also sort of the psychology of clutter as like we value the things that we have more than we value other people's things, even if it's the exact same object. And so we feel more attached to it and are therefore like less likely to get rid of it. Like there's just so many different pieces of the psychological puzzle, I guess.
So, Sarah, give us one step out of the maze. So, if let's say, someone's just moved into a new apartment and has all this stuff that she doesn't really want, but really wants at the same time. But I am going to be at some point traveling a ton, moving to New York. I can't afford to have all this stuff, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to take that first step. And this is probably in your download guide, but for our audience, talk us through helping me take that first step out.
For sure. Yeah. So one of the first things I have anybody do is to examine their why. So willpower is something that's going to come and go. Like you don't want to be at the mercy of your willpower because that's when, your clutter kind of takes control of you, right? If you're just constantly waiting to find the willpower, it's probably never going to come. But you can get very clear on why it is that you want to declutter. I don't know if you're comfortable answering that now, but
well, let's go. Let's do it.
So what
I'm
is
always
it?
uncomfortable.
I mean, that's the way to grow, right? And live life. Yeah. So why is it that you want to declutter now? Like why this time?
Because I have this feeling that when I like to be mobile. I'm a transnational kid and have moved country to country, and I only ever take my pictures and my guitars with me. But in Canada, I bought my first home, and as soon as I did, I bought everything that I needed to go in there. And now I'm starting to feel the itch to kind of travel again and think bigger. And I'm feeling subconsciously and then semi-consciously weighed down by the things around me. But when I try to let go of them, I feel like, exactly as you explained, I might need it. I might need it to record a thing. If anyone looked at my handbag, it's like it's the universe. I'm literally carrying the weight of the fucking world, because it's all these just in case things: a tiny mascara, a tiny this, a tiny that. So yeah, I think it's because I want to feel lighter. I feel heavier with all of this stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge freedom in getting rid of things. I already mentioned it, but it's like we always think that getting rid of something is going to be so much more painful than most of the time it ends up being.
Yeah.
And I feel like with the just in case stuff, you don't have to get rid of all of it. If you choose the things that are either the most expensive to replace or the things that you're most realistically going to need one day, start there. Choose what you're going to keep. And then with the rest of it, ask yourself, is this worth sacrificing the freedom that I would get and the lightness that I would get from being able to just travel and move and, whenever you want? You're sort of weighing the two, right? You're looking at this one object versus your why, your dream.
Right.
Things are going to be worth that and some aren't.
Right.
I think international moves, this is my first international move. And I think it makes getting rid of stuff a lot easier.
Yeah, it does. I agree.
I've noticed like my past moves, like I said, I do definitely purge, but there's a lot of stuff, like even cosmetics and stuff. And I look at that and I'm like, that's totally expired. Why did I keep that?
Right?
Yeah. And I just bring it along. But now that I've got an imminent international move coming up, I found it super easy because I can only bring with me what I can actually carry onto the plane. So furniture gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I could put it in storage, but like I'm gone for a year. Maybe that turns into a year and a half. Probably my preferences will change. I don't even know if I'm coming back to Vancouver. I may go somewhere else. So being kind of having that uncertainty has actually really helped me just decide to let so much stuff go. I think I'm going to have a harder time with my clothes and like sportswear because I have a lot of different sports that I like to do. And so I think that'll be a bit tougher. But I found that to be a lot easier. There's like a set restriction, which I think like when you were talking about moving into a smaller space, that makes it easier because you're like, there's actually a limit.
Yeah.
Is
There's
there
a finite amount of space.
And is
Yeah.
there something to be said for, like, Sarah, do you separate things into, this is sentimental, like, here's the list of sentimental things that I need to get rid of. Here's the list of practical things that I need to get rid of. Here's a list of, because Raquel, you're talking about sportswear and practical things, but I have an entire box, like it's a small box now. It was much, much bigger, of letters that people have written me, cards. You know, let's talk about the sentimental piece for a second. And do you separate that in your decluttering?
I do, but not in the sense that, you know, somebody like Marie Kondo does. Her system is very regimented. You go through books, you go through clothes. It's like, or clothes and books, I can't remember, but you do one and then the other, and she has her reasons for that. My personal take on it is that it doesn't really matter when you go through what. I think the thing that matters is that when you're going through any particular category, it's better to start with one that feels easier for you and sort of gradually build momentum. And then within that category, you pick out the things that are easiest for you and you gradually build momentum.
But you do list out categories.
I mean, everybody can come up with their own, is sort of my approach. You sort of categorically go through, okay, here are all the things in my kitchen.
Right.
I'm gonna, you know, group them by drawer or by appliances versus dishes, you know.
Right.
And then there you isolate, okay, how attached am I to all of these different things? And then you can start working through the deeper piece of what are my underlying beliefs that are causing me to keep this thing.
Do you have a framework of helping someone to understand what those underlying beliefs are? Like, do you do one-on-one declutter work with people?
Don't right now. I'm actually working on a course to do exactly that.
Right. And when does this course launch?
I haven't officially announced it yet, but it will definitely be in the next.
You just have.
Spoiler alerts, yeah. Looking at within the next couple of months. So it's
great.
Definitely on the way. It's in the works. I haven't actually announced a specific date is what I meant.
Okay.
So yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be doing, is coaching people through how to like get started, how to beat the procrastination and all of the that work that goes along with that. And then as they declutter, helping them figure out the underlying beliefs and then giving them tools to work through it.
So what's the most common question that you get? What's the biggest reason people reach out to you?
Yeah, it's where do I start? You know, a lot of people, they reach out and either they have been decluttering for a while and they just feel like they've hit a wall, you know, they've done all the easy stuff and now it's like, okay, this is no longer about the stuff, you know, there's the emotions behind it.
Right.
Or they're just sort of at the point where they don't know what to do with the stuff. Some people have even like, they've chosen what to get rid of, but now they don't know what to do with it. And there's all this decision fatigue going on.
That was my next question actually, was how do you make some money from it? Like, do you use Facebook Marketplace? Like, what would you recommend to people?
It depends how quickly you want to get rid of things and how much time you're willing to devote to it. And also how much do you need the money? There's a bunch of different routes to go, but let's say somebody has identified they could use the money,
Mm-hmm.
pick out the top, like the most expensive items. And then from there, you can post them on Marketplace, Kijiji, there's all different, like eBay works for some people.
Right.
Some things are going to work better for some people than others. And I think as long as they're being like safe about it, selling online can be really great.
Yeah.
If they decide that it's not worth the time, especially for like lower cost items, that sort of thing, I love Recycle, or like buy nothing groups on Facebook.
Great. Yeah.
It's really great. There's also an app called Bunz, B-U-N-Z, or Z for anybody not Canadian. And it's essentially like a bartering system. So you can trade
Cool.
things. Yeah, like I've traded some old physio equipment for like bottles of wine because the person didn't drink but had dinner parties. And
That's a cool culture. I mean,
Yeah,
could
that
you
is.
imagine, Raquel, if we just did, I mean, I would never fit into your clothes, but like clothing swap, and I know that this happens, but gosh, wouldn't it be awesome if we went back to bartering? I
yeah,
have this one ring light. You must give me 18 champagne glasses, please.
I think you just need to go to Burning Man.
That's true. But then that you don't really get to like, oh, I got a piano. You don't bring back like, I got 18 lined notepads from Burning Man.
Wasn't there that guy who did that? He did an experiment. It was so many years ago now. I feel like it was back when blogging was just getting big. So maybe in like early 2000s or something. And he did this whole experiment of what he could trade for a pen. It was like a year-long bartering system.
or
And
like a
he,
paper clip to a house or
It was the
something.
yeah,
paperclip to
and he
the
kept trading
house.
up.
Yeah, that.
Well, that
Yeah.
was, he was selling stuff, wasn't he?
No, he was trading.
Oh, oh,
He just would
wow.
gradually trade for slightly higher priced things. Yeah.
I love that. I love the idea, Sarah. And I want to go just stick on that for a second. Do you free cycle? Do you kind of go, okay, I'm done with this thing now? Like, is that an offer? Is that a regular occurrence for you? Have you shifted into that mentality, or do you just keep the stuff you have and you know that's all you need?
Our needs are always going to change.
Mm,
As we grow as people, as our interests shift, as we enter pandemics and hopefully leave pandemics, like our
yeah.
needs are going to change.
Right.
So of course, I'm always evaluating if I use stuff. My partner is very helpful there. He will tell me when I don't use stuff.
What's the time frame?
I mean, like it's kind of an organic thing. We don't really have a set schedule, but I would say on average, go through our stuff thoroughly once a year, maybe a little more often. Like if a particular place is just sort of getting there's just a little bit too much stuff, or we can't find something, it's usually a sign that we have too much stuff. Um,
Mm.
and then, yeah, we'll spend an afternoon just going through our stuff, really having a hard look at what we're not using and what to do with it.
Yeah, I like that. And I also like that, you kind of expect that a declutter expert is going to look like have my wall behind me, but you've got color and life and things. And I think that's, for our audience is one of the biggest things to kind of remind everybody is that it doesn't mean you stop having wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of the anxiety is that, you reach a certain point in your career and you're like, but I want this. And this makes my life easier. And I think that's what maybe a lot of us need to kind of step back and do and say, look, we can have wonderful things that we want, but we might not need 2 or 3 of them. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have certain things where I'm like, well, I don't need 4,800 pens. And
I
I had
do.
to, oh my gosh, I had to stop bringing home little hotel soaps and shampoos because I just compulsively, to the point where I'd ask for more. I'd be like, can I have a few more? And then they would just sit there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that like a lot of that is realizing what is your point of enough? At what point have you reached enough of your pens or your soaps?
Mm,
It sounds like, in the past, you've reached that point of enough, but continued to go beyond it. So that's where it gets interesting because it's like, okay, once you already had, let's say your enough is like 20 or 30 pens.
yeah.
You've already reached that point. what is it that causes you to want more?
And I think that's what we've got to go away and do our homework of looking at a thing and going, I have one highlighter right here.
Yeah.
Do I need 28 more highlighters? And why? And why do I think that I need that? Because this is the only bloody one I use.
Yeah.
Every time. It works very well. Don't know where I got it from. But same with pens. It's like, do I buy one pen that I love and I use all the time and it's ergonomically perfect? I'm very particular about my pens. Or do I keep stealing them from hotel lobbies?
Yeah.
Like a kleptomaniac.
I think like for me at least, I was very caught up in acquiring things that were for the person that I wanted to be. You know, there's this concept of like the fantasy self, and especially with like clothes and makeup and that sort of thing. You know, I was buying things that I wish I was the person who would wear those things. Like I had a lot of heels. Like I had this one pair in particular. They were like these beautiful stilettos. And of course, I never wore them once.
I
Years.
don't want to go and get I have that pair. I have 4 of those pairs of shoes. I don't want to.
And the
But you're right.
process of deciding to get rid of them, it's not about the shoes. It's about accepting who we are. Like it's all about self-acceptance. And, you know, I'm a flats gal. Like that's just who I am. And it can be so liberating when we just like, you know what? Society tells us we need this one thing, especially as people who were raised as women. They tell us we need to have certain makeup, dress a certain way, like all of these things that it's almost a feminist decision in my case to be like, you know what, I'm not going to wear heels. I'm only going to own 2 eyeshadows, even though I used to have hundreds. Like,
oh, so many.
Yeah.
That was teenage life. That was like the 90s.
Yeah.
Everything was glitter.
I think the feminist looking at it through a feminist frame is really interesting. And I was kind of thinking a similar thing. So I've been choosing a room because my move is coming up. And so I've been choosing a room every week and trying to declutter that room and get rid of everything that I don't need in immediate time or I don't think I'll use up in immediate time. So I did the bathroom the other day and my linen closet, which was great. It's down to the bare minimums, which my boyfriend walked in, he's like, I can see the racks. This thing was like exploding. But I was looking through all the makeup and whatever and like hair products, and I'm not a super big makeup person, but products like moisturizers and face cleansers and like all of that, anything to do with skin or hair, I am all over it. And I was just checking out bottle after bottle after bottle. It's just going straight into the bin because a lot of that you have like one product that you know works and the rest were all because some ad sold you on it and they said you'd have luscious pony-like hair down to your butthole. Like it's just
which you incidentally have anyway.
It's not quite butthole.
It's not butthole. It's not asshole length hair. Okay.
We still have a ways to go.
Good to know.
But it is a big feminist thing, and I look at, you know, or I do think it does shift when you're looking through a feminist frame, I should say, because I look at my boyfriend and he does have a lot of stuff, but definitely when you look at like cosmetic side, like, I mean, I forced him to use a face wash and moisturizer because, you know, gotta have good skin, but but he would be happy as a clam to just have some like Old Spice
and Vaseline
body wash / hair conditioner / hair wash / toothpaste.
Yeah. Just one bar of soap for everything.
Just one bar of soap for everything.
Okay, I'm done. I'm good.
But yeah, it's interesting.
For sure. And it's like, I don't know. I used to have so many different things. And even to this day, I still fall through some of the marketing and, you know, I still have a little bit more than I need, nothing compared to what it was before. But a lot of the time I'll go through and I mean, I'm also very into like sustainability. I try not to throw things out if I don't have to. So that sometimes conflicts with my decluttering. But when it comes to toiletries, one thing that I found really useful is making a list of everything that you are going to declutter, but then going through and using it up and then crossing it out as soon as you're done. It's like, oh, I have this little sample from Sephora or whatever.
Yes.
I'm going to cross it off the list and then I'll throw it out, and sort of going through systematically. I'm also a big list person, so there's that. But I do the same with food too. Like every 6 months or so, I'll go through the pantry. I'll be like, oh, I bought this a while ago. It needs to be eaten. It was on the list. And
yeah, I like that. I like the list and use it up.
yeah,
that's great. So we've only got a few more minutes left, but I did want to just come around to the final question of resources. I mean, we've spoken a lot about some really handy tips and tricks and things that we can do. And tell me what some good first step resources are for people. And obviously, we'd love to help to promote the course when it comes out. But let's start with your free guide and then tell us what we can do to free up our space and minds.
For sure. Yeah. So I do have I call it the Ultimate Decluttering Guide. It's a over 20-page guide that walks people through the process of where to start. And so it has sort of 3 sections. There's pre-cluttering, so the things you should do before you even start decluttering. And that gets into some of the mindset, the why, like identifying what your big why is. And as far as that's concerned, I know a lot of people say, I want less stress, or I want to clean less. But I always try to spin that and take it one step further and have it be something that you want more of.
Okay.
You want to spend less time cleaning. What do you want to do with your time instead?
Okay, got it.
What's your, like, maybe it's you want to spend time with your kids more. You want to take up an old hobby that you haven't really had a chance to practice, something like that.
So more space, more freedom, more time.
Exactly.
Let's look at it from the more perspective.
Yeah, something you're working toward instead of away from. And then we also talk a little bit about like visualization. So, working through what is your home, like what would you like your home to look like? And if you imagine yourself as already having decluttered, you can sort of walk through these different scenarios that I guide you through and sort of start to see your space as it is uncluttered. And then the decluttering, I have my top 10 rules for people when they're decluttering, things to remember, things like starting with the easy stuff rather than jumping straight for all the sentimental cards and letters and that sort of thing. A bunch of rules in there. And then I also include what to do with the stuff. And I give a bunch of ideas for what to do with the stuff, because that's a big barrier for a lot of people, is just this analysis paralysis. There's so many options available.
Yeah.
And so I sort of walk people through that. And then basically the course is going to be looking at a deeper dive into the underlying beliefs that people have around stuff and how to work through those so that they don't end up decluttering but not fixing the problem that caused it in the first place, and then cluttering up their space again and getting into sort of a yo-yo decluttering cycle.
And I love that you've also added some other resources on your website at letthatshitgo.ca, where you've got other articles from other people who have been blogging about their tiny living and their tiny homes and caravan living, campervan living.
Airstream. Yeah.
Airstream. That's right. Yeah, I saw that. So that's great. I mean, I think this guide is really the first step into decluttering. And I'm really looking forward to getting mine up and running and going. Raquel, do you have any final questions before I do the little gem drop summary?
I don't think so.
I think we've wrapped this up. We've gotten so many amazing things out of this conversation. Thank you so much, Sara. That it's you know what, sometimes I think it's as simple as take the first step, and whatever that first step is, if you're, take the first step towards someone that can help guide the rest. And I think you're a great guide for that. So thank you. So we went through your background. You and probably me and Raquel both are sentimentalists. And when you were kind of going through your own journey, you thought that it would make you happy to have all of these things. But what you realized was that you had to ask yourself what need you were trying to fill by procuring those things. I can't believe you live in a 300 square foot apartment, but I also can. And I also know that a lot of people do that. So I think that whether it's a 300 square foot apartment or a 3,000 square foot house, I think all that what you've said is valid, especially the fact that the stuff is a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you don't push your choices on everyone. I love that it needs to arrive. We need to arrive there, and when we do, you're waiting, which is great. I love that you said that it's a cycle, because we keep things to get a sense of control over our lives, but then our clutter controls us. So I think, bombshells, if you're out there looking at your giant pile of things and thinking, do I need to get rid of this stuff? Ask yourself if it's controlling you, if you feel like it's controlling you, and if it's just in case clutter, because just in case clutter can be fine, but it also can be important to have a check on it and make sure that you don't have an entire home worth of just in case stuff that might keep you from moving to other places and being other people that you would like to be. I love that your space, your minimal space made you into a better communicator in a lot of senses, because you've got this great relationship with your partner to do that. And I like that you touched on the introversion versus extroversion. I think it's really important for us to understand that everyone's different, and that when everything is everywhere, for a lot of us who are very sensitive, it can be in the back of our minds. And it can be subconscious that we look at all this clutter and have feelings of anxiety. So I think you really well, you well said for us to understand who we are, examine our why, and don't wait for willpower to be the thing that gets us going. We need to start with getting things that are hard to replace or high priced, or easy things that we can let go of, or easier, I should say, relatively speaking. And it doesn't really matter how we go through it. We just need to start with categories that we feel good about, whether it's, a room at a time, a kitchen, or whether it's practical versus sentimental. Most often people ask where to start, and that's the most common question. So if you're asking, where do I start? Then you're 100% not alone. And then there are a lot of apps, free cycle apps. I think you said Buns was one of the apps, and ways that you can trade instead of necessarily giving it away. And that feeds into the sustainability piece of things, where you did mention, to write a list and then use it up. And then you get that satisfying check of once you've done that, like, I've used my moisturizer, I've used this thing. I love the fantasy self. I love asking the question of, is this me or is this the fantasy me? And finally, I think when you've given us, what you've given us is the link to the resources that we need, which will include the declutter guide, walking you through all of those questions in a nice, coherent sort of fashion. So did I wrap that up pretty succinctly?
Perfect.
All inclusively.
Great.
I was able to say it.
Well, I mean, I think that's, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been liberating, and I look forward to doing that declutter guide.
And
Raquel?
can we just remind everyone where they can find Sara?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So actually, Sara, you go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, so my website is letthatshitgo.ca, and you can find me most active on Instagram. It's at @letthatshit__go. It was slim pickings by the time I got around to it.
Who are the other let that shit goes? I wonder what they do. They're probably just people that throw fridges off
Honestly, if you
construction sites.
You'll find me. I'm there.
Great.
Yeah.
So Instagram is your most. There is a Facebook page for those people. There's TikTok. And do you have a lot of like videos on declutter scenarios? How do you kind of show us on these platforms?
Instagram is mostly photos. So I'm sort of walking through all of those all of that sort of mindset work. I also have a lot of quotes. So I write quotes on a little blackboard that are for inspiration and a little bit of like truth bomb, like the shit that nobody else is going to tell you. Like I'll tell you.
Love that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I'm a little bit less active on TikTok these days, but I would like to change that. So yeah.
Great.
where you can.
We don't live on there at all. We would just be doing stupid dances, and
I wouldn't be doing stupid dances.
you would be doing, I would make you. Although you're the one that's getting the master's in persuasive communication, so I'd probably
I
fail.
want to do a TikTok. I just don't have time.
I know.
I feel like
yeah.
it takes effort. If I did a TikTok, like, you know
so
me,
much
Christina.
effort.
If I'm
I
going
know.
to do something, it's going to be like
Yeah.
full
intense.
out. And I don't
know.
have the time for that.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's focus on one thing at a time.
That's right.
But I do also want to do a very final shout out because I met you because of my older sister. So I want to say thank you to Raven for sending me over to Sarah's Instagram page and being like, this person needs to be on your podcast, just do it. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to write to a stranger and just see if it works. So thank you. Thank you to Raven. Thank you to you, Sarah. And we look forward to staying in touch as you release your course, and as you continue in the declutter world. We'd love to be there and support you however we can.
Absolutely. Same here. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.